Mr. Vani, before you proceed, Mr. Hussein, so how much time are you going to need?
Sorry, my lord.
How much time are you going to need?
In re-examination, my lord.
Yes? It's not really re-examination, it's just that I'm giving you the courtesy for it, because these are not adversarial proceedings. Yes.
My lord, I'm not going to take long. The matters are fully canvassed. I can't foresee that I will take longer than 15 minutes at the most.
Okay. I want to manage time such that
Yes.
I must also have some questions to ask
Yes.
this witness.
Yes.
Okay. Can you take us until tea time, Mr. Vani? Do you think you can finish?
Your Lordship, I can try. And on that score, Your Lordship, if there is going to be translation, I think there's no prospect of finishing by tea time. And I was actually going to ask, given that the witness has already responded quite perfectly in English already, whether he can't be persuaded to simply talk in English. If he
No, I can't persuade a witness to speak a language he's not comfortable with. But I think do the best you can within the time available, because I must also ask him questions and I'm going to need time. So if you could, within the time available, try and make the points you wish to make with the witness. That will help.
My Lord, I will go as quickly as I can.
Yes,
but this
please.
is a crucial witness, and we have quite a few questions
Yes.
to put to him,
Yes, please.
as the court pleases.
Mr. Rodrigues, you still under oath?
I'm under oath, sir.
Yes, okay. Proceed.
Thank you, my Lord. My Lord, just a quick update. I have consulted with Mr. George Bezos, SC, and he's advised me that the points that he wishes to raise from his book, we can actually pursue those in argument, and we will be consulting with him again for that purpose.
Yes. Okay.
Mr. Rodrigues, I want to return briefly to the question of coffee that was consumed in room 1026, the coffee that you brought into the room. In your evidence before the first inquest court, you testified that while the three, Chloe, Fanikak, and Mr. Timol were enjoying their coffee, you stood close to the table that was on the left-hand side of the room. I don't know whether you still have the photograph C8.
Yes, it does.
Okay, there you have it. So you can see the table on the left-hand side, and I assume that you weren't standing where you are standing in the photograph, but a bit further back next to the table. Is that correct?
Excuse toch hier laagbare?
While the others were drinking coffee, where were you standing?
Ek het steeds laagbare, ek het steeds langs die tafel, die stoel B gestaan by die tafel.
Thank you. And indeed, the finding of the court at page 5 also has you standing in that position. That's page 5 of the translated finding. Now, yesterday you insisted really that there was a third cup in the photograph, and you said that that third cup was behind the first cup on the big table. You recall?
Ek het gesê dit lyk so hier laagbare. Ek kan nie definitief sê nie, maar dit lyk so.
Yes. Are we going to translate or not?
Well, it looks like, yeah, this is what I said yesterday.
So it appears to be that you might be correct on the fact that there was a third cup in the room, but wrong in respect of its location. And I want to hand up the rather poor quality photograph. My lord, it's on page 61 of volume B. It's exhibit AA2.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Rodrigues, this is in fact a fuller photograph. It appears that the other photograph we were using at Exhibit C8 was somewhat shrunk. But if you look at the bigger photograph, which is a poor copy, if you look on the left-hand side, on the table, there appears to be a cup sitting on that table. Do you see?
No, I don't see it.
Perhaps if I point to it, over there.
Oh,
You see it now?
yeah, I see it.
Okay, so if that photograph is to be believed, there were in fact 3 cups in the room. But I put it to you that that third cup on that table, that didn't belong to Mr. Timol. I put it to you, you were drinking from that cup, not Mr. Timol.
Eerlaatbare, dit is nie waar nie. Ek het nie koffie gedrink nie.
It's
Nou,
not
op daai
true.
oomblik nie.
It's not true. I did not drink coffee at that point in time.
You testified that while you were in room 1026, someone came in and said that the other three people had been arrested, and you're probably aware that the inquest court came to refer to this mystery person as Mr. X. But at that time, the court said that his identity could not be disclosed for security reasons. You recall that?
Ek weet nie, ek is nie bewus daarvan nie.
Right.
I
But-
do not know.
Lachbare?
I'm not aware of it.
But you do recall that some person came to the office, perhaps after about 20 minutes, and said that he had arrested 3 people.
He didn't say that he has arrested. Hy het nie gesê hy het dit gearresteer nie, eerlaatbare. Hy het gesê daar is 3 mense in hegtenis geneem.
I did not say that he personally said he arrested these 3 people. I said there are 3 people that has been arrested.
Do you know who this person is? Do you know his identity?
No,
Nee, eerlaatbare, ek weet nie.
Did you get to know his identity afterwards, subsequently?
Nee, eerlaatbare.
no.
And how would you describe this person? Was he large, medium size, small?
Ek sou sê, wel ek sou sê dis baie lank gelede, maar ek sou sê hy was middelmatig gebou.
He was medium sized.
Was he tall, of medium height, or short?
Wel, ek kan nie onthou nie.
You can't recall whether he was tall or short.
Nee, dis te lank gelede. Eerlaatbare, ek kan nie onthou nie.
I cannot remember.
Was he English or Afrikaans speaking?
Hy het in Afrikaans gepraat.
He was
Eerlaatbare.
talking in Afrikaans.
And how old would you estimate he was at that time?
I don't know. Ek kan nie skat nie, eerlaatbare.
I cannot estimate his age.
But was he a young man, perhaps in his 20s or 30s, around your age at that time, or was somewhat older, 40s or 50s?
I think it was ek dink hy was middeljarig, as ek moet sê, eerlaatbare. as ek moet sê, ek kan nie definitief sê nie, maar ek skat hom middeljarig.
So more in his 50s perhaps?
Nee,
40s?
40s, yes.
He was 40s.
Did he have hair? Was he bald or did he have hair?
Nee, ek kan nie onthou nie.
I cannot remember.
Do you have any recollection of what he was wearing?
Nee, ek weet nie eerlagbare.
No, I do not know.
But it was plain clothes or not, it wasn't a uniform?
Nou, dit was gewone klere, dit was nie 'n uniform nie eerlagbare.
He was clad in civilian clothes.
So in your statement at paragraph 4, you say that a member of the security branch came in, said that they had identified the whites, and you refer to a name, Quinton Jacobson. When writing your statement, did you remember the name Quinton Jacobson from what had been said in the room, or were you reminded of the name when you prepared your statement?
Ek was in kennis gestel van die naam toe ek die verklaring geskryf het eerlagbare.
I was informed about this name when I took down the statement.
Although your statement suggests that you remembered the name because it had been mentioned on arrival in the room,
Not around in the room. Toe ek die verklaring afgelê het eerlagbare, is daar vir my gesê die man is Quinton Jacobson.
Yeah, when I took down the statement, I was told that this person's name is Quinton Jacobson.
did you write your own statement or was it prepared for you?
No, it was prepared for me. Eerlagbare.
And was it prepared by General Base?
Ja, eerlagbare. Ek neem so aan, ja, dis reg.
Yes.
Dit is voorberei deur generaal Buys.
It was prepared by General Base.
You've testified that when these names were mentioned, Quinton Jacobson and his brother Henry, Timol went into a state of shock.
Dis korrek, eerlagbare.
That is correct.
Now, would you be surprised to hear that Quinton and Henry Jacobson were never in the underground? In fact, they were not even members of the SACP or any band organization.
Ek het nie so, ek weet nie eerlagbare, ek het nie daai kennis nie.
I did not know that type of information.
I'm not asking you whether you knew, I'm asking you whether you were surprised to hear that from me.
Ek weet nie. Ek kan nie sê ek is verbaas nie, want ek het nie die mense geken nie.
Yes.
I
please-
can't say that I was surprised because I did not know these people.
Please remember, Mr. Rodrigues, that the allegation is made by you is that Mr. Timol went into a state of shock at this news, hearing those names and what had happened to those people. So when I say to you, now, are you surprised to hear that in fact those individuals were not involved in the underground and were not members of any band organization?
Ek is verbaas om dit te verneem, eerlagbare.
I am surprised to hear that.
And are you also surprised to hear that they never worked with Mr. Timol or Mr. Esop? They only had passing social contact with them, which wasn't of an illegal or even a political nature.
Ek kan nie kommentaar daarop lewer nie, eerlagbare, want ek weet niks daarvan af nie.
I cannot comment.
But it's surprising to hear that, isn't it?
Dit is, ek weet nie, eerlagbare.
I don't know.
Well, what it means, Mr. Rodrigues, is that if that is true, then it raises questions about your evidence that Mr. Timol was surprised and he appeared shocked by the news. Do you understand where he's going?
Ja.
So
Yeah.
then it raises questions. If he did not have any relationship with those people, why would he be, according to your evidence, be shocked to hear that? That's really the question.
Ek eerlagbare, ek kan nie Ek kan nie sê nie, ek weet nie, maar hy was geskok, definitief.
I can't say, but he was shocked definitely.
I'm indebted to your lordship.
Yes.
And furthermore, what we do know is that, and this is from the evidence of Salim Essop, who was detained with Mr. Timol and who in fact was working in the underground with Mr. Timol. Mr. Essop says, well, I was a photographic enthusiast, and that, you know, he knew the Jacobson brothers because they ran a photographic studio, and he and Timol visited that studio in Pritchard Street just once, only once. Would you be surprised to hear that?
Ek kan nie eens sê ek is verbaas nie, edelagbare, want ek weet nie, ek het nie daai kennis van hulle nie.
Yeah, I can't say that I was surprised because I did not have that information.
Yes, but you're hearing it now. And in the light of your claim that Timol went into a state of shock, we're trying to establish, if he was in a state of shock, why was he in a state of shock?
Edelagbare, my kennis is nie, my kennis is ver te kort. Ek kan nie vir u sê wat hulle verhouding was nie, en ek kan ook nie vir u sê ek is verbaas nie. Al wat ek vir u kan sê is, hy het vir my geskok gelyk.
All what I can say is that he looked shocked.
Well, certainly the evidence of the police, or the suggestion, was that Mr. Timol was somehow in cahoots with the Jacobsons, and that this news meant that the game was up, and that's why he went into this state of shock. Is that not a reasonable assumption to make?
Ek kan nie dit sê nie, edelagbare.
I can't say that. I cannot compare to the council submission.
You might be interested to hear how many references there were to Ahmed Timol, the name Ahmed Timol, in Quinton Jacobson's detention file. And I'll tell you, not one, not a single reference. Now, it was apparently claimed by Mr. X that Quinton Jacobson had been arrested. For the record, he hadn't been arrested. He was only arrested on 2nd November 1971. Now, you might be interested to hear, Mr. Rodrigues, how many times Ahmed Timol's name was mentioned in the judgment in the criminal case against Quinton Jacobson, in which he was acquitted. So how many times was he mentioned in that judgment? Not once. Not a single reference to Ahmed Timol. You're not surprised to hear this?
Ek weet nie, edelagbare, ek het nie die kennis daarvan nie.
I do not know, I do not have any information in that regard.
So I put it to you, Mr. Rodrigues, that there was simply no basis and no cause for Mr. Timol to be in a state of shock on the basis of the claim that you have alleged before the first inquest court and this inquest court.
Ek kan net reageer op dit wat ek gesien het, edelagbare.
I only reacted on what I have seen.
And I put it to you, Mr. Rodrigues, that this Mr. X story is just that. It's a story. It's a crude fabrication of the security branch. And I put it to you, and we will argue this in our submissions, that you dutifully played along with this crude fabrication.
Nee, edelagbare, ek kan net reageer op dit wat ek gesien het. Ek kan nie verder argumenteer daaroor nie.
No, my lord, I can only react on what I have seen.
Now, Mr. Rodrigues, Captain Gloy, you claim that he asked you to guard Timol while they left the room. were you surprised at that time to be left in charge of a security detainee?
Ek kan nie sê ek was verbaas nie, want ek het net 'n opdrag uitgevoer. Ons is in daardie stadium van die wedstryd was ons benadering om 'n opdrag uit te voer. As jy 'n opdrag gekry het, dan voer jy hom uit. Jy vra nie vrae nie.
Do
Yeah,
you,
I-
do you,
I
sorry,
wouldn't say
please go
that I was surprised because I was just instructed to keep guard on Ahmed Timol, and you cannot ask questions as to why should I keep guard on somebody that I've been instructed to keep guard on.
Do you agree that guarding a security detainee was not your designated function, and indeed you were not legally authorized to guard a security detainee or to hold such a detainee in your custody?
Dis 'n opdrag wat ek uitgevoer het, edelagbare. Ek kon nie weier nie.
Yeah, it was an instruction that I had to do. I had no any other alternative.
Was it implied by Captain Glory that if Timol attempted to escape, either implied or said, that you were expected to apply physical force to restrain him?
Nee, hy het nooit vir my so gesê nie, edelagbare.
No, he did not tell me that.
But did you think, well, if this fellow tries to escape, I'm going to stop him, whatever it takes?
Dit is so edelagbare, want ek is 'n polisieman gewees. Ek was nie net 'n veiligheidsman nie, ek was 'n polisieman en ek moes my werk doen en die opdrag uitvoer wat ek gekry het.
Yes, I was a police officer. I was not just a security or somebody that needed to keep guard on him, because I was instructed to keep guard on him.
Yes, indeed. And especially since you had been told that this was a prized asset, a valuable detainee.
Ja, hy het vir my gesê dit is 'n waardevolle getuie. Dit is wat Gloy vir my gesê het.
Yeah, this
Hey,
is what he
Lagbare.
told me, that he's a valuable detainee.
Now, do you agree that this was hardly a situation where Captains Gloy and Van Niekerk had no choice but to use you in particular to guard Timol?
Ek sal nie so sê die edelagbare, ek weet nie wie anders beskikbaar was op daai oomblik nie. Maar ek het net die opdrag uitgevoer wat ek gekry het.
I wouldn't say so. I don't know who else, but I was just doing what I was instructed to do.
But, Mr. Rodrigues, with the greatest respect, you were in John Vorster Square, one of the largest police complexes in South Africa. It was the middle of the afternoon. Are you saying that one of them couldn't have stepped out and asked a colleague or another police officer, or perhaps picked up the telephone and called in a trained police officer, not a clerical staff member from the pay section in Pretoria, to come through and guard this highly prized security detainee?
Ek kan nie kommentaar lewer daarop nie. Ek weet nie wat in sy kop aangegaan het nie, edelagbare. Ek het net die opdrag uitgevoer wat ek gekry het.
I cannot comment on that. I just did what I was instructed to do.
I mean, if I had to estimate the number of policemen in John Vorster Square at that time, probably more than 100, and yet they had to use you. Was that not surprising?
Dit was nie vir my 'n verrassing nie. Ek het net my opdrag uitgevoer wat ek gekry het wat Gloy vir my gegee het.
It wasn't a surprise to me. I was just doing what I was instructed to do by Joy.
Yes. So you're a dutiful employee of the police, and you follow instructions no matter what.
Ek het geen keuse gehad nie. In daardie tyd, edelagbare, was dit so dat jy vra nie vrae as jy 'n opdrag kry nie, jy voer dit net uit.
Yeah, I did not have any other alternative. You don't ask questions, you do what you are instructed to do.
Did Captain Gloy and Van Niekerk said they're going to be a short while, that's your evidence. Did they say what they were going to do outside? That was going to take a quick period?
Ekskuus, herhaal net asseblief die vraag.
Het hulle gesê wat gaan hulle doen buitekant?
The Captains Gloy and Van Niekerk, they said they were going to be just a short while, And did they say what they were going to do that was going to take a quick time?
Hulle werk was absoluut geheim, edelagbare. Ek het nie geweet wat hulle gaan doen nie.
Their job was too secretive. I did not know what were they going to do outside.
But you expected them back quickly.
Ja, wel daar was nie 'n tyd gestel nie. Edelagbare het net gesê hulle sal gou terug wees.
No, there was no time mentioned, but all what they said, they will come back as soon as
So
possible.
in your evidence, you say once they had gone out after a minute or so, Mr. Timol said that he wanted to go to the toilet. And in your evidence, you said, well, that's a reasonable request. And you got up immediately to concede to that request. Now, I want to put it to you that it may have been a reasonable request from the detainee. He might have had a desperate need. But I want to put it to you, it was wholly unreasonable for you to accede to that request and immediately get up to go to the toilet.
Ek het nooit gesê ek het dadelik opgestaan, die edelagbare, ons het saam opgestaan. Hy en ek het dieselfde oomblik opgestaan, maar ek kan nie sê hoe lank dit geneem het nadat hy my gevra het nie.
We, both of us simultaneously stood up together, but I cannot mention as to how long did it take when he asked me to go to the toilet.
In fact, shouldn't you have stayed put right where you were, told Mr. Timol, if he had already got up, sit down and wait for the two captains to return, especially if they were only going to be a short while?
Edelagbare, ek het kans gesien om hom na die toilet toe te neem.
I saw a chance to take him to the toilet.
Did the two captains, before they left, say that if Timol required a comfort break, it was okay to go take him to the toilet?
Hulle het nie vir my so gesê nie, edelagbare.
They did not tell me that.
So in fact, you had no authority to leave that room with Timol.
Ek het die magting gehad om dit te doen want ek was 'n polisman, edelagbare, en dit was vir my 'n redelike versoek.
I had that authority because I was a policeman.
Yes, but with respect, you were employed by the police, but you worked as a clerk.
Ja, maar dit maak nie saak of ek 'n klerk was nie, edelagbare, ek was steeds 'n polisieman.
It doesn't matter whether I was a clerk, but I was still a police officer.
So you believe that you had authority to do something that, in fact, you hadn't been instructed to do, because they hadn't told you you can take him out the room for purposes of going to the toilet. It's just something that you believe you were entitled to do.
Edelagbare, ek het nooit so 'n opdrag gekry van daai of van die kerk nie, maar dit was vir my 'n redelike versoek.
Yeah, I was never told by Joy or Van Niekerk, but it was just a reasonable
Request.
a request that I thought it would have been
So
good for me.
you testified that this was your very first time to John Vorster Square. You didn't know your way around the building. In fact, you needed an escort to get to these offices.
Edelagbare, dis heeltemal korrek. Dis die eerste keer dat ek daar gekom het. Maar met die stap, met die inkom daar, het ek 'n bordjie gesien, toilet, in die gang. Maar ek kan nie op hierdie oomblik meer sê waar dit was nie. Dit is heeltemal te lank gelede.
Yeah. When I walked into the building, I saw a board which was written toilet.
And Ms. Rodrigues, how did you know that Mr. Timol was allowed to use that toilet? Was any toilet just open to security detainees to use?
Dit kan ek nie sê nie, edelagbare, maar ek neem aan dat hy geregtig was om daardie toilet te gebruik.
That I cannot say, but I think he had a right to use the toilet.
Now, what if Gloy and Van Niekerk returned to find an empty office? Would they not have hit the roof and been particularly angry with you?
Dit is nie die geval nie, hulle was sympathiek gesind, edelagbare.
No, that is not issue. They were sympathetic.
Now, there is evidence before this court that certain detainees, when moved between officers, when they were in the corridors, their heads had to be covered. Some cases with a hood. In other cases, they were blindfolded. Now, we understand that this was likely to be done in order to prevent them from being seen or to prevent them from seeing others. How did you know that this wasn't the case in respect of Mr. Timol?
Ek weet niks van so iets nie, edelagbare. Ek het nie die kennis daarvan nie.
I know nothing of that sort. I did not have any information in that regard.
So you were given no instructions about that particular problem?
Ek is nie 'n opdrag gegee in verband daarmee nie, edelagbare.
I was never given information in relation to what the council is putting to me.
I put it to you, Mr. Rodrigues, that again, this story of Timol wanting to go to the toilet is just another story. It was made up by the police to explain how it was he was able to storm over to the window in a matter of seconds, and that you, Mr. Rodrigues, are dutifully playing along with that story.
Edelagbare, ek ontken dit ten sterkste. Daar bestaan nie so iets nie. En ek kan net getuig op dit wat ek gesien het, edelagbare.
I deny that in the strongest term. I did what I was instructed to do.
Can I ask you, Mr. Rodrigues, were you in any way scared or intimidated by Mr. Timol? His physical presence?
Ek was glad nie geïntimideer deur sy teenwoordigheid nie, edelagbare.
No, I was never intimidated by his presence.
And why not?
Edelagbare, Timol was heel wat kleiner as ek. En ek het kans gesien vir enigiets, edelagbare.
Yeah, he was younger than me.
Yes, and for the record,
Just a minute. Not younger, you were smaller than me.
Smaller.
as it turns out, he was younger as well, but that's by the by.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor.
The post-mortem report discloses at death how much he weighed and how tall he was. And for the record, my lord, that report is at volume B, Exhibit X, page 53. So he weighed 61 kilograms and he was 1.6 meters tall. And as you say, he was considerably smaller and lighter than you. You accept?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Ek aanvaar dit eerlikwaar.
I accept it as is.
So it wasn't his physicality that may have held you back when he apparently stormed to that window.
Glad nie eerlikwaar, dit is nie so nie.
Not at all. It is not in that way.
Yes. Now, you testified that in your attempt to reach Mr. Timol, catch him, you bumped into, and again, please have the photo available. You bumped into chair A and lost balance. And I'm just jumping ahead in time. We can return later to what happened at chair C. But when you turned around to try and cut off Mr. Timol, you claim that you lost your balance and fell to the ground, at which point Mr. Timol was able to dive out the window. Now, the magistrate in his finding makes no reference to you falling to the ground. He only talks about you stumbling over the chair. So this falling the ground version, did you put that to the first inquest?
Dit kan ek nie onthou nie, eerlikwaar. Dit is 46 jaar gelede. Ek kan dit regtig nie onthou nie.
That I cannot remember. It's about 46 years back.
And also in your testimony, both before the first inquest court and this one, You claim that Mr. Timol was moving quite fast. He wasn't limping or going slowly. Indeed, according to the magistrate at page 6 of the finding, he was storming towards the window. So you would agree that if that is the truth, then this is not a picture of a man who's severely injured. Do you agree?
Ek kan nie kommentaar lewer oor sy beserings nie, edelagbare.
I cannot comment in relation to his injuries.
Yes, but if he was severely injured, if he had leg or ankle injuries, he wouldn't have been able to do what you claim he did.
Edelagbare, ek word gevra om te bespiegel en ek kan nie bespiegel nie. Ek kan net reageer op dit wat ek gesien het.
Yeah, I'm asked to speculate. I cannot speculate. All what I can say is that I can say what I saw.
Yes, but that's not the question. The question was, if he was so injured, he couldn't have got up and stormed to the window. That's the question.
Edelagbare, om die vraag te antwoord sal ek moet weet wat die erns van sy beserings was en ek het hom nie ondersoek nie. Ek is nie 'n dokter nie, edelagbare.
Yeah, to be able to respond to that question, I need to know as to how serious was his injuries,
Well,
and as well as I'm not a doctor.
Mr. Rodrigues, we're going to indulge you. We're going to take you through those injuries. And in this regard, I'm going to refer to the 2 forensic pathologist report. We'll start with Dr. Holland, my lord, that's Exhibit C5. Page 137, as well as 138. She outlines a number of bruises on Mr. Timol's legs, which she says were ante-mortem. They occurred prior to the injury. And indeed, it is the evidence of Dr. Skeppers that certain of those bruises were also ante-mortem. So she says there were 2 big bruises on the lateral aspect of the right thigh. There was a big bruise of the medial and posterior aspects of the right knee. A big bruise of the back of the right lower leg and the underlying muscles of the calf, which he said were contused. Then on page 138, there was a big bruise on the left lower leg and left ankle, and bruises of the left posterior thigh. And then in Dr. Naidu's report, he's at paragraph 31, he remarks on the injury in the post-mortem report, and he says this was a left ankle dislocation. And he said this had to happen before the fall because the bruising around that left ankle was far too great a vital reaction to have occurred in the period of survival after the fall. So, Mr. Rodrigues, let me put this to you. A person with those kinds of injuries, particularly the left ankle dislocation, cannot run, let alone dive or jump out a window in the split seconds that you allege. And I put it to you that in his state, he could barely get up and walk, let alone storm to the window and dive out.
Edelagbare, my kennis van hierdie mediese aspekte skiet ver te kort. Ek kan nie oordeel. Ek kan net vir u sê wat ek gesien het. Dis al wat ek vir u kan sê. Ek kan nie oordeel nie.
Yeah, I cannot confirm what the counsel is just saying now, and I'm not a medical doctor.
Mr. Rodrigues, let's forget Mr. Timol for a moment. You're somebody who has played rugby. You've done other contact sports, karate, boxing, amongst other things. On the rugby field, if somebody dislocates one of their ankles, would they be in a position to spring up and make a dash?
Nee, edelagbare, hy sal moet 'n mediese behandeling gekry het.
No, it's not possible. You need to be attended medically.
Thank you, Mr. Rodrigues. Now, there's the uncontested evidence of Salim Essop. And to remind you, Salim Essop was the man who was arrested with Mr. Timol in that vehicle. He had worked closely with Mr. Timol, but he was a youngster. He was 22 years old at the time, some 8 years younger than Mr. Timol. And no respect is intended to Mr. Essop, but really he was Mr. Timol's sidekick. He wasn't involved in communicating with anybody. He wasn't a member of any prohibited organization. He was simply assisting Mr. Timol to distribute those leaflets. Now, Mr. Essop's evidence, which is uncontested, is that over a period, from the Friday evening through to Tuesday morning, so approximately a day shorter than Mr. Timol's custody on the 10th floor, he was brutalized. Brutalized to the point where on the Tuesday morning, he slipped into unconsciousness. He was effectively in a coma. And in his words, he was close to death. Now, isn't it stretching imagination to breaking point that the security branch, if Mr. Essop's evidence is to be accepted, which we submit it is to be, would brutalize Essop to the point where he was close to death, but leave Mr. Timol untouched?
Edelagbare, ek was nie betrokke nie, ek kan nie kommentaar lewer daarop nie.
I don't want to object, my lord, but this is argument that is followed, and in the time that you've also indicated that we should use time constraints, Lord, is this really fair cross-examination of this witness in the light of his evidence that he's already given? We might not like, or my learned colleague might not like his answers, but Lord, he indicated...
I'll move on. There's no need to take this matter further.
What are you saying? I interrupt you. What are you saying, Mr. Van?
I'm happy to move on and not to take that matter further unless the court wishes to do so.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam.
Now, Mr. Rodrigues, the magistrate's finding reflects a number of versions as to what happened in room 1026. And I want to start with the magistrate's attempt to reflect what you had said in your testimony to that court. And starting at page 6 of the inquest finding, and there is a copy if you want to look at it. So at page 6 of the finding, the magistrate says that you pushed the window open, Mr. Timol pushed the window open and dived out. So that action is a push and a dive. Now this seems to be somewhat in conflict with your evidence that he had to open the window first and then dive out.
Edelagbare, ek kan net kommentaar lewer op wat ek gesien het. Ek kan nie kommentaar lewer op die uitspraak van die voorsittende beampte nie, asseblief.
Yeah, I can only comment on what I've seen. I cannot comment on the judgment of the presiding officer.
No, that's fair enough. I'm not asking you to change your version. Then at page 28 of the magistrate's finding, and that's in the middle of page 28. The magistrate says that according to your evidence, the window was already open and Timol was busy diving through the window. Are you sticking to your version rather than...
Edelagbare, ek kan net kommentaar lewer op dit wat ek gesien het. Ek kan net getuig op dit wat ek gesien het.
I can only comment on what I've seen.
And then finally on this score, when the magistrate was dealing with certain photographs, at page 29 to 30 of the finding, the magistrate reflects that you said when you came in with the coffee, the window was closed. Is that correct?
Edelagbare, ek sou dit gesien het as die venster oop was, edelagbare, want hulle maak, wat vir my gesê is, hulle maak gewoonlik die venster toe, om die geraas wat buitekant is, uit te sluit. Edelagbare.
Yeah, it's possible that the window might have been closed because what I know or what I was informed about is that they usually keep their windows closed so that the noise should also not disturb them while they're inside their offices.
That's the noise from the traffic. And of course it goes without saying that if you saw him having to open the window, then it obviously was closed. Now let's deal with the versions of Captain Gloy and Brigadier Patel as reflected in the magistrate's finding. According to Captain Gloy's statement, and that's at page 17. I just put the exhibit number. Gloy says that when you reported to him as to what happened, Timol stood up from the chair and moved somewhat in the direction of the door. But that doesn't seem to be in your evidence.
Edelagbare, dit is nie korrek nie. Ek kan net, soos ek al soveel keer gesê het, ek kan net kommentaar lewer op dit wat ek gesien het, en dit is nie wat gebeur het nie, edelagbare.
It's not correct. This is not what has happened. I can only comment on what I have seen.
And Brigadier Patel, in his statement, and my learned junior will get me the details for Brigadier Patel, at the bottom of page 33, Brigadier Patel says that you told him that you moved towards chair C. And if you can just have the photograph back again,
Yeah.
C8. And that you didn't turn around and go back towards chair A in order to cut off Mr. Timol. Once you had got to chair C, you then went around the table, in other words, to follow Timol in the direction that he was moving towards the window. So you came around the table according to Patel.
Edelagbare, ek sê weer, ek kan net reageer op wat ek gesien het, en ek kan u ook sê dat nie een van die offisiere, en daar was 'n paar van hulle wat my gevra het wat gebeur het terwyl ek verduidelik het wat gebeur het, aantekeninge gemaak. So ek kan nie kommentaar op hulle verklaringe lewer nie, edelagbare.
Yeah, I cannot comment on their statements because at the time when I was questioned, nobody took down the answers or wrote down whatever that I've been telling them as to what transpired on that day in question.
Yes. My Lord, for the record, Gloy's statement is in Volume B, Exhibit G. And Patel is in the same volume, Exhibit S. Mr. Rodrigues, we're going to argue. You may respond if you wish. That the differences in these versions, and they're not small differences, they have arisen because this entire business about the suicide is a fabrication. And it's always difficult to maintain consistency in a fabrication.
Eerlagbare, dit is absoluut onwaar. Ek wil net vir u sê, die mense het nie aantekeninge gemaak nie. Ek weet nie hoeveel tyd het verloop voordat hulle verklaringe gemaak het nie, en dan moes hulle dit op hulle geheue gedoen het. Dis al wat ek kan sê, Eerlagbare.
It is not correct, and I do not know as to how long did it take them to write down whatever that I told them. But on that day when I was questioned, there was no a written statement, or they never took down all what I've told them.
Now, let's turn to your evidence on how he actually exited the window. Your evidence is that he dived through the window. Mr. Rodrigues, do you know the difference between diving and jumping?
Ek weet wat is die verskil tussen duik en spring, Eerlagbare.
Yeah, I know the difference between diving and jumping.
So, diving, to be as simple as possible, would be a dive out, hands and head first, out the window. Whereas a jump would be get up onto the window and then spring out, jump.
Dis korrek, Eerlagbare, ek stem saam daarmee.
It is correct. I do concur with your submission.
But your evidence is that he dived, he didn't jump.
Dis korrek, Eerlagbare.
That is correct.
Now, I want to put to you the evidence, the expert evidence of one of the forensic pathologists, Dr. Naidu. My Lord, that is Exhibit C3, and we're looking at page 13, paragraph 39. Because the question was posed to Dr. Naidu in terms of the injuries sustained, whether it was possible, whether that could have arisen, the fall injuries, from a dive. And I'm going to read the paragraph in question. Could he have launched himself, as in dived through, out of the window? If this had been at all possible and actually performed, I have great doubts whether the window aperture would have allowed such without the deceased being caught or snagged by his clothing, in brackets no clothing was described, and without his clothing being grossly torn, and without significant and deep linear scratch or friction abrasions and or lacerations being seen upon the body, in brackets, aside from the healing abrasions and bruises that were seen. So Mr. Rodrigues, Dr. Naidu is saying that if he had dived, in all likelihood, he would have gotten caught up on the latch and on the edges and would have injured himself as such, but in fact, the post-mortem disclosed no such injuries as a result of connecting with parts of the window.
Eerlagbare, die mediese persoon wat daardie verklaring gemaak het, was nie op die oomblik toe dit gebeur het daar nie. Hy neem aan dit sou gebeur het. Dis nie wat werklik gebeur het nie, Eerlagbare.
Yeah, this medical practitioner that wrote down that, did this post-mortem, was not there at the time when this issue happened. So he might have thought out of his own mindset that this is what could have happened.
Now, I also want to put to you the expert evidence of Mr. Mudley. He was called to give evidence on the trajectory. And he was also asked, because he visited the scene, he was in that room, was diving possible? And I want to read to you paragraph, or rather the bottom of page 1 of his report, and Lord, that's Exhibit C10. just so you know, Mr. Mudley is an aeronautical engineer for what it's worth. And he writes as follows: dive option is not possible. It would not be possible to run, open the window, and dive simultaneously. Would be challenging. So he casts serious doubt over your version that it was a dive. Do you have any response?
Eerlagbare, dit is alles bespiegelinge. Dit is nie die werklikheid nie, eerlagbare. Wat ek sê is die werklikheid. Ek het dit gesien.
It's all speculation. What I'm saying, this is what I've seen.
So I want to take you back to this photograph. According to your evidence, you were in chair A and Mr. Timol was in chair B. Is that right?
Is dit korrek, eerlagbare?
Incorrect or correct?
Is korrek, eerlagbare?
Correct.
So Mr. Timol was able to move around, avoid the chair that you're standing next to in that photograph, open the window, and then dive out in split seconds.
Kan u dit vir my kan die persoon net vir my dit weer verduidelik asseblief?
With pleasure. Your evidence is that Mr. Timol was sitting in B.
Yep.
And just to remind you, you had testified that you managed to stumble over 2 chairs. I'm just putting it to you that Mr. Timol somehow managed to slip around that table. He somehow managed to avoid stumbling over the chair that you're standing next to, which is currently pushed in, but we don't know whether it was pushed in or not. Get to the window, open it up, and dive out.
Eerlagbare, ek wil net beswaar aan maak. Ek het nie oor 2 stoele gestruikel nie, ek het oor 1 stoel gestruikel, eerlagbare.
I just want to object. I did not stumble on 2 chairs. It's only 1 chair that I stumbled on.
All right, I simply want to put it to you, Mr. Rodrigues, that your claim of this dashing to the window, opening it up, and diving out is highly improbable. In fact, I want to put it to you that it was impossible in those circumstances, and is yet another example of a transparent fabrication that you are party to.
Eerlagbare, dit is absolute onwaarheid.
It's absolutely
Dit
not
is
true.
absolute onwaarheid wat nou verkondig word. Dit is nie waar nie. Dit is nie wat gebeur het nie.
That's not what happened.
And to add to the improbabilities, Mr. Rodrigues, in his evidence, Mr. Mudley was asked if Mr. Timol had dived out head first, hands and head first, where would he have landed? At the bottom? Could he have landed in the position that he was found 3 meters away? And the answer of Mr. Mudley is that he would not have been found 3 meters away from the edge of the building. He would have landed much closer to the building. And moreover, we know from the terrain that if he had landed much closer to the building, his injuries would have been considerably different.
Eerlagbare, dit is weer eens 'n klomp bespiegelinge. Ek kan nie daarop kommentaar lewer nie, eerlagbare.
Again, it's a lot of speculation. I cannot comment on that.
Mr. Rodrigues, I want to put it to you that given the smallness of that room, only 2.6 meters across, just marginally bigger than your height.
Much bigger, sir.
Well, you were close to 1.9 meters. And given your height compared to Timol, and if we look at the figures, you were nearly 30 centimeters taller than him. Isn't it most extraordinary that you couldn't catch him? A small room, small person versus a tall, big person. Isn't it just extraordinary?
Edelagbare, ek het dit nou al 'n paar keer verduidelik presies wat gebeur het. Hoe vinnig dit gebeur het. Alles in breekdeel van 'n sekonde. Waar ek was, waar Timol was, ek het dit al 'n paar keer verduidelik. Dit is nie vir my soos wat my geleerde vriend sê, verbasend nie.
Yeah, I've mentioned it several times that it happened in a split seconds of period of time, and this is what I've seen. I'm not speculating about what my learned friend is now asking me, but I'm saying what I saw, which happened on that day in question.
Let me put this to you because I must. This is what we are going to put to this honourable court. I want to put it to you that if your story had any credibility, and if in fact there was a so-called chase in that room, if that happened, I put it to you, you would have caught him.
Edelagbare, ek wil nou nie die hele ding weer beskryf nie. Maar al wat ek vir julle wil sê is dat Timol het 'n voorsprong op my gehad. Jy verstaan? Toe ek agterkom het beweeg, toe was hy al 'n end weg. Toe was hy al om die tafel. Hy was al op pad na die venster toe. Hy het 'n groot voorsprong by my gehad. Ek het 'n groot afstand gehad om te beweeg en met 'n stoel in my pad. Dis wat ek bereid is om te sê hier Edelagbare.
Yeah, I do not want to go back and give a description of what happened exactly, but the manner in which this incident happened, it happened so fast in such a way that I could hardly catch him or to stop him, and not from jumping or diving through the window.
Now, Mr. Rodrigues, you looked out the window according to your evidence and you saw the body lying at the bottom. Where exactly was it lying, and can you tell the court of its orientation? How far from the building, and where was the head pointing?
Edelagbare, dit is baie lank gelede. Ek kan nie alles presies onthou nie. Dit is, as ek dit nou moet beskryf, dan moet ek bespiegel. En ek wil nie bespiegel nie, Edelagbare. As ek nie die feite kan vir u gee nie, dan wil ek liewer nie bespiegel nie. Want ek weet nie.
It's a long time ago. I cannot just speculate as to how far was he, but that's all what I can say.
And how long did you look at the body from the window? How long? Was it a matter of seconds, minutes?
Dit was 'n dit was 'n kwessie van sekondes, Edelagbare, want ons is dadelik af onder toe.
Yeah,
Ek saam met die ander mense af onder toe.
it was a question of seconds, and we immediately went down to where Timol has
Did you
fallen.
close the window after you had looked?
Ek het nie aan die venster geraak nie, Edelagbare.
I did not touch at the window.
Did anybody else look from that window to the body?
Ek kan nie presies onthou hoeveel, Edelagbare, ek kan nie presies onthou hoeveel mense daar was nie. Maar daar was mense wat in die vertrekking gestorm het en venster toe gestorm het en afgekyk het. Maar ek kan nie vir u sê hoeveel hulle was nie, ek weet nie.
There were people, but who got into the office and who peeped through the window, and I cannot say how many were they.
Now let's be clear. When you looked at the window, it was immediately after Mr. Timol had gone out of it.
Dis korrek, Edelagbare.
That is correct.
And you then saying that others came also to look at that point in time out the window.
Edelagbare, dit is nadat ek uitgestorm het en geskree het, Timol het gespring, dat daar van die mense in die kantoor gestorm het.
No, it was after when I went out the office and screamed that Timol has jumped.
And did they look out the same window, or were there people looking out of other windows as well?
Edelagbare het deur dieselfde oop venster gekyk na onder toe.
They peeped through that same open window.
And when you later returned to room 1026, was the window open or closed?
Dit kan ek nie onthou nie, Edelagbare.
That I cannot remember.
So when you left the room and you raised the alarm, Timol has jumped. I want to know precisely from you, did you turn left or did you turn right outside of 1026?
Eerlaagbaar, ek verstaan nie die vraag nie, is dit, moet ek beskryf, toe ek uit die vertrek uitgegaan het, of ek links of rechts gedraai het?
Ja.
Ek kan nie dit sê nie, eerlaagbaar, ek kan dit nie onthou nie.
Yes, I'm trying to establish the direction in which you went. Did you turn left or did you turn right as you exited the room?
After the incident,
Yes.
sir? Nee, ek weet nie, eerlaagbaar, ek kan dit nie onthou nie.
I do not know, I cannot remember.
And can you recall how far you rushed until you stopped to speak to various people?
Eerlaagbaar, daar was chaos op daai oomblik. Ek kan nie onthou hoe ver ek beweeg het. Ek het uitgegaan en ek het geskree en die mense het uit die kantore uitgekom en na my toe gekom.
It was chaotic, a chaotic situation. I screamed, people came out of their offices.
But was it a few meters or was it much further than that?
Ek wil nie bespiegel nie, eerlaagbaar, as ek nie kan beslis vir u sê hoe filtreer dit was nie, dan sal ek liewers nie hierdie vraag beantwoord nie.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate. I would rather not respond to Council's question.
And did you stay on the same floor?
Vir daai oomblik, het ek was ek op dieselfde vloer.
Yeah,
Ek was
that-
in die,
Okay. Okay. At that point in time, I was still on that same floor.
Yes. And before you decided to dash down to where the body lay, did you move to a floor below to speak to anybody?
nee, eerlaagbaar, ek het nie na 'n vloer onder toe gegaan om met iemand te praat nie.
I never went to any other floor to go and talk to somebody else there.
And presumably you were anxious to find Captains Gloy and Van Niekerk.
Eerlaagbare, die mense het gestorm. En ons is af saam, ek is saam met hulle af onder toe. Waar Gloy en Van Niekerk was op daai oomblik kan ek nie vir u sê nie.
Now, the people came and as to where Joy and Van Niekerk, as to where were they at that point in time, I wouldn't be able to say.
So where did you eventually find Captains Gloy and Van Niekerk?
Ek het hulle gekry toe ons onder op die grond is, eerlaagbare.
I found them when we were already on the ground.
Now, you testified yesterday that you and Colonel Grayling dashed to the ground floor by the staircase. Did I hear correctly? By the stairs.
Sover ek kan onthou, eerlaagbare, wat die huisbak is te stadig. Ons het met die trappe afgegaan, ons het baie vinnig beweeg, want ons wil onderkom.
So, jy het met die trappe afgegaan. Yeah, we used the stairs because the lift was too slow, so we wanted to be as soon as possible there where Timol fell.
So you dashed down 10 stories.
Ja, wel, eerlaagbare, op daai oomblik was 'n mens so vol adrenalien gepomp, dat jy nie eers agtergekom het hoe ver jy beweeg en hoe vinnig jy beweeg, jy het net gegaan.
Yeah, I was pumped up. As if I'm pumped up with adrenaline. So we had to be fast as we could to be able to be as quick as possible to be there where this incident happened.
My Lord, it's approaching 11:15. I still have some more questions. I wonder if we shouldn't take the tea adjournment.
Yes, you would remember what I said earlier when we started. I'm going to need time with this witness.
Yes, my Lord, I will do the best I can to finish as quickly as I can.
Some of the questions may be argumentative. Leave them for argument. We are adjourned.
Skryf meneer nog boeken. Oud maar nikkel.
Ja.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rodrigues, you're still under oath.
I'm still on the oath, sir.
Yes, okay. Proceed, Counsel.
Thank you, Lordship. Mr. Rodrigues, was it a black lady that gave you the coffee to take to the office where Captains Glow and Fanny Kirk were? A black lady?
Eerlaagbare, dit was 'n wit man wat vir my die skimbord met die koffie gegee het.
It wasn't a black woman, it was a white person
So
who gave me the tray as well as the coffees.
I just want to check, when you got to where Mr. Timol was laying at at the bottom of the building, was the body in the same position as what you had seen from the window, or had it changed? Did you notice any movement?
Eerlagbare, dit kan ek nie onthou nie.
That I can.
Now, Mr. Rodrigues, it is your evidence that the body was moved quite quickly because he potentially had head and neck.
Daar was 'n hele paar offisiere gewees wat daar was. Ek kon nie vir hulle sê wat hulle moet doen nie. Ek het ook nie die kennis gehad om vir hulle te sê wat om te doen nie.
Yeah, I was a sergeant, I was a junior. There was a lot of police officers, and I could not have told them what to do.
Well, you told us that you were trained in first aid and you see that people are doing something very wrong. Notwithstanding the fact that you are superior officers, you couldn't tell them that, look, it's better to leave him there.
Eerlagbare, die first aid kursus wat ek geloop het ek geloop in 1956. Dit was almal wat daar was in die college het daardie kursus geloop. Dit was 56, hierdie het gebeur in 71. Eerlagbare, ek was nie meer in staat om te onthou presies wat doen 'n mens in daai geval nie. Maar in elk geval was ek 'n junior, ek kon nie vir die offisiere sê los hom of doen dit of doen dat nie.
Yeah, the courses, first aid courses that I did them in 1956, and this
Some kind of law or rule in the police that if a junior, I think it should be done differently. Are you not allowed to say that?
Ons is nie toegelaat om dit te doen nie, Eerlagbare.
we are not allowed to do that.
Proceed, Advocate Moore.
As the court pleases. So, Mr. Rodrigues, you seem to be saying that you knew he shouldn't have been moved because of his injuries following a 10-story fall, but because you were a junior officer, you couldn't tell your seniors what to do. Is that right?
Eerlagbare, dit is nie heeltemal reg nie. Ek het nie geweet wat die regte prosedures is met die mense nie, omdat ek meer as 20 jaar gelede die kursus geloop het.
It's not correct because I told my seniors or my superiors what to have
Yes.
done.
Although, unless I'm not remembering correctly, you're already on record in this morning's evidence conceding that individuals with serious potential spinal injuries should not be moved.
Dit is algemene kennis, Eerlagbare.
That's the general knowledge in actual fact.
Right. Did you think that the emergency services should have been called and him placed in an ambulance and taken to hospital as quickly as possible?
Eerlagbare, ek sou sê dat dit die logiese ding sou gewees het om te doen. Maar hoekom hulle dit nie gedoen het nie, weet ek nie.
What I would say is that it would have been a logic a thing to have done, but I do not know why did they not do that.
And in fact, it was quite a convenient place because where he lay wasn't so far. It fronted onto the road, so an ambulance could have stopped there and accessed him quite quickly.
Dis korrek, Eerlagbare.
That is indeed so.
In your evidence, I just one last thing, and I know you're not a trained palliation from taking place.
Eerlagbare, quickly. Ek kan nie vir u sê wat die tydsverloop was vanaf die liggaam daar gelê het tot die verwyder is nie. Dit weet ek nie, Eerlagbare.
Yeah, my learned colleague is talking about quickly, but I cannot say for how long did the.
Daar ingeneem is nie, so ek weet nie.
Yeah, I suspected that he might have been taken into a room on the ground floor, but I don't know which room was he taken into.
So when he was removed on those blankets and taken towards the building, where were you?
Ek was 'n toeskouer, ekskuus Eerlagbare, ek was 'n toeskouer van die gebeure, van die dinge wat daar plaasgevind het.
I was also a spectator of what has happened.
So you did not follow the police officers carrying Mr. Timol into the building?
Wel, ek het hulle nie gevolg nie, edelagbare.
I did not follow them.
So at what point did you go back into John Vorster Square?
Ek is terug in die gebou in.
You told this court that you were questioned by various officers after the incident. How long after the incident were you asked to come through to whoever? Perhaps you can explain to the court in what order you saw these individuals in order to explain what happened.
Edelagbare, ek kan nie onthou in watter volgorde die mense na my toe gekom het nie. Ek kan ook nie onthou hoe lank na die tyd dit was nie. Ek weet nie.
Yeah, I cannot recall as to in which form of order this happened and after how long did they came to come and take down the statement from me.
But it is your evidence that nobody took down notes in relation to what happened following the incident when they spoke to you?
Korrek, edelagbare, niemand, geen offisier het handtekeninge gemaak nadat ek vir hulle verduidelik het wat gebeur het.
That is correct. Nobody took notes at the time when I was explaining them as to what transpired.
And did you not find that a little odd or concerning?
Ja, dit was my baie snaaks, edelagbare, maar ek is 'n junior, ek kon hulle nie dwing om dit te doen nie.
Yeah, it was to me strange, and I could not have forced them to have done that.
Now, your statement is dated 11th of November 1971, and you've testified to this court that that was prepared by General Base. Was it prepared with you, or was it presented to you subsequently?
Generaal Buys het die verklaring afgeneem in 'n handskrif en dit is later oorgetik en in sy teenwoordigheid het ek dit onderteken en hy het dit onderteken en die getuie het dit onderteken.
So I did it self-geskryf.
Ja,
He personally wrote down the statement with his handwriting, and thereafter it was typed and it was signed as well as the witnesses.
But if I check, he wrote it down while you were talking to him.
as usual.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he also,
And the reason for that, it was because of the chaos that was there and the people that confronted me to want to know as to what could have happened.
let's turn to the evidence you have given to this court yesterday, in which you allege that Captains Gloy and Van Niekerk and General Base leaned on you to put into your statement that you and Timol
Daarom moes insluit dat ek en Timol gestoei het.
Yeah, I would object to counsel's question, but it was General Base that said to me in my statement I must say or change the events as how they unfolded and mention that there was a wrestle between myself and Timol.
And I just want to check, Captains Gloy and Van Niekerk, they were not part of that discussion?
Nee, hulle was nie deel van daardie gesprek nie, edelagbare.
They were not part of the discussion.
But did they also try to persuade you at a later stage, perhaps?
Ja, in 'n later stadium het hulle gesê ek moet my verklaring verander, ek moet nog ander feite insluit wat ek kan dit nie meer onthou wat hulle gesê het nie, maar dit was onware feite wat nie gestrook het met wat gebeur het daar nie.
Yeah, they also wanted me to change my version and put or write down some facts which were not in line with what transpired on that day in question.
So they wanted you to change your version, or at least put up the fabrication of a fight, plus change other facts?
Eerlagbare praat jy nou van Gloin van die kerk of van wie praat
Yes,
ons
Gloin
nou?
van die kerk.
Gloin van die kerk het ander feite genoem. Dit was nie dieselfde as wat generaal Buys genoem het nie.
Ja, Doyen van Nieuwkerk spoke about other facts, not the ones that were spoken by General Buys.
And did they want you to insert facts or adjust existing facts in your statement?
Ek moes bestaande feite verander, aanpas eerlagbare.
Yeah, it means that I should not write what exactly happened. I should write something different to what transpired on that day.
And do you recall what it was that they wanted you to change?
Ek kan net onthou van wat Buys gesê het, die ander kan ek nie onthou nie want dit is baie lank gelede eerlagbare.
Ik kan net onthou wat generaal Buys gesê het.
Ja, dit kan ek baie goed onthou. Ja.
Okay. I can vividly recall what General Buys wanted me to say or to change my version as to what could have happened on that day in question.
So when did General Buys approach you to put up this fabrication of the fight? Was it a few days after the incident?
Dit was voordat hulle hierdie ekskuus eerlagbare, dit was voordat generaal Buys my verklaring afgeneem het.
It was before General Buys took down my statement.
So it would have been, if I heard you correctly, a few days before the signing of your statement, which was on the 11th of November.
Dit was eerlagbare, dit was tydens die afneem van my verklaring wat generaal Buys die voorstel aan my gemaak het.
It was during the...
This all happened on one day.
Ja, die verklaring is in een dag van generaal Buys. Die verklaring wat generaal Buys van my afgeneem het was in een dag gedoen.
Yes, it was one day. It was taken down in one day.
And signed on the same day?
Yep.
And
Ja, eerlagbare.
That you could also make that fabrication and adjust other facts.
Dit was voordat generaal Buys met my gepraat het, eerlagbare.
it was before General Buys spoke to me.
Was it just a few days before? Or was it on the same day?
Ek kan nie onthou hoe lank voor die tyd was dit nie, eerlagbare, maar dit was voor generaal Buys met my gepraat het.
Yeah, I cannot remember as to exactly when was it, but it was before General Buys spoke to me.
Now, I must ask you, Mr. Rodrigues, did you not ask them, why do you want me to change the statement? Why do you want me to fabricate this particular version?
Eerlagbare, daar was omdat ek nie wou instem om te doen wat hulle wou gehad het ek moet doen nie, was daar 'n konfrontasie tussen my en die offisiere. Wat daar gesê is, kan ek nie onthou nie. Ek wil nie bespiegel oor wat daar gesê is nie, eerlagbare, maar daar was 'n konfrontasie, daar was woordewisselinge en konfrontasies tussen ons.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate, but there was a confrontation in what they wanted me to do, and there was an exchange of words during that period of time.
Mr. Rodrigues, please listen carefully. The question is, did you ask either General Buys and or Captain Gloy and or Captain van Niekerk why they wanted you to fabricate a version that there was a fight?
Nee, eerlagbare, ek het hulle nie gevra hoekom hulle wil gehad het ek moet dit doen nie, maar ek het net botweg geweier om dit te doen.
I did not ask them why did they want me to change the version of the events as they unfolded.
So they wanted you to,
Planted
apologies,
clearly to do what they wanted me to do.
they wanted you to break the law. And it looks,
Dis 'n klomp offisiere. Ek sê die offisiere daar was nog 2 ander offisiere wat dit ook wou gehad het, maar ek kan nie hulle name onthou nie. Wat ook wou gehad het ek moet my verklaring verander.
There was a lot of officers, and there's also another two of them whom I cannot remember their names, who wanted me to also change the version.
Hier agbare en dit was ek probeer nou woorde vind om vir u te beskryf.
Said it in English.
They were a tough couple. Hulle was
Sterk,
'n sterk groep, 'n belangrike groep offisiere. En ek het nie 'n kans gehad om teen hulle te gaan hier lagbare.
yeah, they were a tough couple mentioned by the witness, and I did not have a chance to try them not to influence me to change my version.
But you must have been, you must have been quite torn and emotional and thinking about, why is it, do they want me to do this, to fabricate a version? Police officers asking me to fabricate a version about something that didn't happen. Did you not think about it at the time?
Hier lagbare, ek het baie daaroor gedink, maar ek wil nie bespiegel nie. Ek wil nie vir u nou raai skote waag nie. Ek het gedink oor die saak, maar ek wil liewers ek kan nie vir u nou sê wat ek gedink het in daai tyd nie.
Yeah, I thought of it, but I don't want to guess before this court. But in actual fact, I did think of it.
Now, by that stage, your statement, or what you had to say to the police, was that it was a suicide. And if it was a suicide, and if it was a real suicide, then the police are potentially not to blame. And you've already testified that there were no injuries. So why would they want you to fabricate a fight?
Jy lagbare, ek kan nie daai vraag beantwoord nie, want daai mense het hulle eie minds gehad, jy lagbare. Ek kan nie daai vraag beantwoord nie. Ek kan nie sê hoekom hulle dit gedoen het nie.
Yeah, I can't respond to that question. Those people have their own mindsets, and that's it.
Yes. I must put it to you, Mr. Rodrigues, that the only logical explanation in these circumstances is that they wanted you to put up this story of a fight between yourself and Timol to explain the injuries that were on Timol. There can be no other reason to my mind. Do you agree?
Ek stem nie saam met julle agbare. Ek kan nie sê waarom hulle dit gedoen het nie. Ek weet nie.
Yeah, I do not concur to counsel's submission now. I do not know why they wanted me to do that.
Mr. Rodrigues, at that time, and I'm now dealing with the aftermath, so between the fall and your resignation from the police the following year, did you feel that you were let down, perhaps even betrayed by Captains Gloy and Van Niekerk?
Hulle het nooit die indruk in my geskep dat hulle my gaan verraai nie, hier afware of in die steek laat nie. Dit kan ek nie sê nie. Ek kan nie daaroor praat nie.
They never showed me as to they wanted to betray me. I cannot comment on that.
Yes, but when they approached you sometime before you spoke to General Base, and they suggested that you should create this version, fabricate this version, did they promise you anything? Did they suggest that this might lead to a promotion or some form of acknowledgement or reward?
Nee, julle agbare, hulle het geen sulke beloftes aan my gemaak nie.
Yeah, they never promised me such promotions or any other mode of thanksgiving.
So they simply wanted you to do this with nothing in return.
Nee, edelagbare, ek het dit is heeltemal reg. Hulle het geen beloftes aan my gemaak van voordele wat ek gaan kry uit die verandering van my verklaring.
Yeah, they did not promise me anything in the event of me changing the version as to what happened on that day in question.
Because if I recall correctly, it is your evidence that towards the end of the inquest in June of 1972, when you resigned, you said that you were resigning because you hadn't been promoted and you were very disappointed.
Edelagbare, ek het as gevolg van die magtige alliansie tussen die offisiere, het ek besef dat ek geen toekoms in die polisie het nie. Daar's geen bevorderingsmoontlikhede vir my gewees nie, want ek sou dit net nie gekry het nie. Toe het ek besluit om my bande met die polisie te verbreek.
Yeah, after having realized that there's no way that I can be promoted since I've refused to change the version of what transpired on that day in question, I decided to resign.
But didn't you think that as a result of your refusal to do these things by senior officers, that you lost out on promotion?
Ja, ek sou definitief nie bevorder geword het nie, edelagbare, want die mense, die offisiere het 'n groot invloed gehad op wat in die polisie gebeur.
Yeah, I would not have been promoted because these officers had an influence in what happened in the police force.
Now, I want to return to the timing of when the three, Gloy, Van Niekerk and Base, when they approached you to engage in this, I think we need to call it what it is, a cover-up. You've testified that in respect of Base, it was when he took the statement from you on the 11th of November. And you've also testified that in relation to the two captains, Gloy and Van Niekerk, it was some time before. You haven't been specific, but could have been in the days running up to your session with General Base. There is another date that I want to draw your attention to, and that date is the 4th of November 1971. And that happens to be the date that Dr. Skeepers signed the post-mortem report. And I can also tell you, and I think we've provided a copy of his post-mortem report, that in the Skeepers post-mortem report, there is, he reaches the conclusion that there are several injuries that were ante-mortem. In other words, not related to the fall, occurring before the fall. I put it to you that it's quite likely, given the circumstances and the timing, that the police got wind of what was in the post-mortem report, discovered that there were these pre-fall injuries that had to be explained. And moreover, Dr. Skeepers, in his estimations, put some of those injuries during the period of detention, that the police were looking for some kind of excuse or reason to put up to explain those injuries. Does that not sound reasonable to you?
Edelagbare, ek dra geen kennis daarvan nie. Ek kan nie daarop kommentaar lewer nie.
I know nothing in relation to council submission now.
You're not under a duty, but you also accept that as a police officer, you were under a sworn duty to uphold the law.
Yeah.
And that normally speaking, if you are pushed to fabricate evidence, it's something you would bring to the attention of the authorities.
Question as to what